All right. So, Matt, I heard there was this new drug out, this new like experimental drug, whatever, that you can just go buy it over the counter, and it's apparently supposed to cure skepticism. I'm not buying it. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable, because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, man, I'm good.
Excellent.
I'm good.
Excellent. Before we get into it, I just thought I'd let y'all know if I wince at any point trying to click my mouse in my notes or whatever, I just thought I'd let y'all know. We are on Michael's school's PTA, right? So every time they have an event, I've told you, Matt, I am in charge of popcorn. I make popcorn for everybody.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd just start going by Colonel Ballinger, but with a K, Kernel. But I was trying to clean this stupid machine the other day, and I'm wiping it, and for some reason, something in there sliced the end of my fingertip wide open. Like, it's deep, and it just went shooting, and all that. And so extra, cleaning, but luckily I caught it in the paper towel that I was wiping with, so nothing got in the machine, but it just like, all day. Oh man. So I am sore. My clicking hand is sore. So
oh my God.
If y'all see me go, when I click the mouse, that's why.
Why? What's this little, there's this cherry flavored popcorn?
Yeah.
Why'd you put some sauce? Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. And extra salty. So,
extra salty. Adam's blood comes out salty.
It does, man. It does. I'm a salty SOB. So, but no, if you're from Michael's school and listening, no blood got in the machine. I'm fine. it just tried to murder me. But, so we want to say, go check out the Podbelly Network at podbelly.com. You can find a list of shows that we're happy to be associated with, and I guarantee you're going to find something on that list that you're going to enjoy. So go check them out. They've also got some tips and tricks on podcasting and stuff if you're looking to get into it and want a little bit of help there. We also want to thank tonight's sponsor, HelloFresh, and we'll talk more about their yummy stuff coming up. While you're on the internet surfing around looking for stuff that you're going to buy for me and Matt and send to us.
Hey, we're just openly asking for gifts.
A man can dream, right? While you're on there doing whatever you're doing, go give us a review. We haven't asked for reviews in a while, but it's always good if you could go on there, give us a 5-star rating, and then say whatever you want. I don't care if you trash me and Matt in the words of the review.
God, don't tell them that.
Well, I mean, we get it anyway, so why not just ask for it? Now, at least I'll feel like they're doing what I say when they trash it. But as long as you do 5 stars, I don't care what you say. I think it's cool because we've gotten recipes people have put in there. That's awesome. Tell us about that time you fell off your bike or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just 5-star review and give it, write something in there. We would really appreciate that. It helps kind of boost us up in the ratings on iTunes and stuff. And if the higher we get, the more iTunes will push us to new listeners. And that's the only reason that Matt and I care at all about it, is because we just want to get more listeners into the graveyard. We don't need that for our egos. Don't think that. Our egos are big enough. We don't need that. But it helps get the graveyard shown to more people, and that's how independent shows like Graveyard Tales and others grow. is word of mouth and if they get suggested to somebody online. So if you don't mind, if you have not given us a review, go do that for us. All right, so let's take a second and talk about one of our longtime sponsors, HelloFresh. You've heard us talk about them before, but Matt and I love them. They are a meal kit delivery service that will deliver fresh food right to your doorstep without having to do anything. And you get with HelloFresh farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes, like I said, delivered to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store, and you can count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's the reason it's America's #1 meal kit. And it's also the reason that Matt and I love them. They take the hassle out of mealtime. And this spring, you can get these pre-portioned ingredients delivered for easy to prepare recipes. You can skip those checkout lines, and it's nice outside. So why do you want to spend your time in a grocery store? Just get online, order you some HelloFresh, and you can enjoy being outside and just have the meals show up to your door. And you can spend less time in the kitchen with quick and easy meals like HelloFresh's fast and fresh pineapple chicken tacos or falafel power bowls, which are ready in 15 minutes or less.
Yeah. And I mean, you would be the hit of Taco Tuesday. I promise you.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you're not a pro in the kitchen. I mean, these foolproof recipes, they're so easy to follow. My kids, they love HelloFresh because of that.
Right.
Because they take over. I mean, Amanda and I, a lot of times we get the night off. You know, the kids, they decide which meal we're going to have, and man, they're at it. And that recipe card, I mean, it's so easy to follow. I mean, trust me, if my kids can cook a delicious meal with HelloFresh, so can you. And it beyond all the benefits that you get with the additional family time, you're adding a new component to family dinners. You're saving money.
Right.
You're saving money, especially if you know you're like me. You got so many kids. You don't want to eat out. It's cost you an arm and a leg.
No joke.
HelloFresh makes it possible to feed restaurant quality food to your whole family for a lot less money and a lot more fun.
That's right. And if like Matt, you have your kids do it, you can sit with your feet up and enjoy being outside with a cocktail while they're cooking. So think of it that way. It's easy. So if you would like to order you some HelloFresh and get on this train like Matt and I and love it as much as we do and our families do, all you've got to do is go to HelloFresh.com/graveyard50. That's GRAVEYARD50 and use our code graveyard50 and you'll get 50% off plus your first box ships for free.
That's right. Just go to HelloFresh.com/graveyard50 and use our code graveyard50 for 50% off plus your first box ships free.
So, Matt, that's all the housekeeping I've got. Why don't you tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
Okay, so tonight, Adam and I are going to head out to the West Coast, to Portland, Oregon, and we're going to talk about probably the happiest, friendliest haunted house in the U.S., and that is the Pittock Mansion. Now, I am going to say Pittock. I have heard Pittock, but I have heard Pittock more. So I'm going to go with that.
Being in Portland, it probably is Pittock, but I've just been saying Pittock Mansion the whole time. So
whatever. I don't know how it's exactly said, but I've watched enough videos that I've heard it both ways. So if you're from there and you get this episode and we're just you're like, oh my God, I can't believe these two clowns are mispronouncing the name of this place. You need to go back and listen to the other shows and hear how we butcher other places' names.
Butcher places in our home states. So it's not just, our tongues get tied. I mean, it happens. So as we always say, go check our sources. Go down to the bottom of the show notes and check where we got all this information. You can continue the information, and we like to give props to the people that went to these places and did the research that Matt and I don't get to go do. But now the Pittock Mansion is located at 3229 Northwest Pittock Drive in Portland, Oregon. Now, the home once symbolized the heights of Portland's wealthy elite, but after just 4 years, both homeowners died. So I wanted to start with that because it's kind of crazy. I'll talk more about it, believe me. But I wanted to start with that because it's like you build this opulent house and then you only get to enjoy it for 4 years. I just feel bad for them, really. But before we get into the house, we need to look at the owners, Henry Pittock. Now, this comes from the Pittock Mansion's historical info, and there's a few others in here, but go check our sources if you want to see where we got all this. Now, Henry Pittock, he was born in 1834 in London, England, but he grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he attended preparatory school, and he worked in his father's printing business starting at about the age of 12. So, as always, back then, they started work early. There were no child labor laws, so you could make them child's labor all you wanted to. Earn your keep, as my dad used to tell me. But
that's right.
Now, in 1853, when Henry was 19, he headed west on the Oregon Trail to seek his fortune. Now, he landed, quote, barefoot and without a cent in Oregon, in the Oregon Territory in October of that year. Now, a year later, his future wife, Georgiana Burton, left Missouri with her family and headed west as well. Now, when Henry and Georgiana arrived in the area, Portland was a frontier, quote, stump town that was actually competing with Oregon City to become like a major trade and industrial center for that region. So it's pretty interesting that you've got Oregon City, but Portland, I guess, kind of beat them out.
Yeah.
In the long run. But at that time, they were still trying to get it going, and they were neck and neck.
Yeah, but going back to Mr. Pittock, think of the resolve you got to have at 19 years old to head out to essentially the great unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know how I was at 19. I was not going to just take off and seek my fortune. But I realized times were different, but that is impressive. I mean, usually you hear about these people doing this. They're in their 20s, he's a kid and he takes off to make his way in the world.
You got to remember that at that time, the West, it was the quote Wild West. We call it that nowadays for a reason, because most of the cities started up on the eastern seaboard, and that's where the longest inhabitation of the New World was, and it slowly started moving west. Well, that time, there was a lot of stuff in between that kind of would kill most people. I mean, the Oregon Trail. Yeah. You could end up with dysentery and die on the Oregon Trail.
That's right. So, I mean, it was in the video game for a reason.
It had to be true, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was that's the thing. You might not even survive the trip. I mean, you may not even get to where you're going.
Yep. And so like Matt said, for him to strike out at 19 on his own, even with times being different and people growing up a lot quicker back in those days than kids do now, that's still a risky business. And for him to not only make it out there, but just to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And then when you hear what he's accomplished in his life, you go, makes sense why he accomplished this, because of just that attitude that he had to, I'm going to go make my fortunes across the country. It wasn't like hopping on a plane and you're there in 4 hours. That probably took him a long time to get there. But Henry found work as a typesetter at the Oregonian at the time, and this was when the newspaper industry was actually financially risky and it was fiercely competitive. So there were more than 30 newspapers launched in Portland during this period.
Good Lord.
Yep. So we think now we've got a lot of newspapers in one area, but back then, any Joe and his wife could start a newspaper, and didn't mean it was going to be popular or whatever. But if you had a printing press and some connections to paper, you could start up a newspaper and start printing stuff. So there were 30 just in the Portland area, and he started working for one of these, the Oregonian. And like they said, it was risky. It was a risky endeavor at the time and very competitive market. But on June 20th of 1860, don't know why my tongue did that. 1860, I don't know what that was. On June 20th of 1860, Henry and Georgiana married, and 5 months later, he was given ownership of the paper in exchange for back wages. So
we hadn't been paying this guy,
right? And he's kept working.
We just give him the business.
Yeah, just give him the business. So here, Henry, you now own the newspaper. And he's like, but wait a minute, you still haven't paid me.
That's right.
I still haven't made any money, and this may fold pretty soon. So where's my money coming from? At least that's what I would have said. Now, Henry went on to transform the Oregonian into a successful daily newspaper that's still printed today. So
that's incredible.
Yep. So if you're in the Oregon area and you get the Oregonian newspaper, Henry Pittock was one of the first people to own that company, and it's been going this long. Now, Pittock went on to become one of the wealthiest men in Oregon society. Now, while best known for being a successful newspaper publisher, Henry also built a financial empire by investing in real estate, banking, railroads, steamboats, sheep ranching, silver mining, and, of course, the paper industry. So he was a pioneering guy in all this, or he just took risks that worked out for him. Now, he was an avid outdoorsman, and in his childhood, they said he was a mountaineer. So even before he moved out to Oregon, in his early childhood, he was a mountaineer, climbing mountains and doing all this stuff, camping up there. He was a bicycle enthusiast, and he was among the first group to climb Mount Hood. He helped found the Mazamas Climbing Club as well. Now, Georgiana Pittock became a founder and fundraiser for many charities and cultural organizations such as the Ladies Relief Society, Women's Union, and the Martha Washington Home, which was a residence for single, self-supporting women. Now, it wasn't until the early 1900s, 1909 to be specific, that Henry started planning his, quote, mansion on the hill on property that had this panoramic view of Portland. It also overlooked the Willamette River and the distant Cascade Mountains. So if you can picture that is a beautiful view out the front of your house.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'd
I'd
love to visit it, let alone live in a place like that.
The whole town.
Yeah. So all of Portland, the Willamette River, Cascade Mountains in the background as the backdrop to all of this, had to be gorgeous, even back then when there wasn't much of a Portland. Now, With big plans in mind, the Pittocks hired the architect Edward T. Folk to design their mansion from scratch. Now, if you remember, several of the asylums that we've talked about, the hospitals for the quote mental patients back in the day, this Folk guy was involved in a lot of those. Mm-hmm. He was a pretty prominent architect back then. Now, the 46-room mansion, just let that sink in for a minute. 46-room mansion.
Yeah.
Was built on a hill, like I said, overlooking Portland, with a French Renaissance exterior. The inside was uniquely designed with oak paneled cabinets, marble floors, a huge central staircase, modern amenities like an elevator and dumbwaiter, and perhaps most strikingly, beautiful views of that area, Mount Hood and the Cascade Mountains. So we discussed that, Matt, in another episode. I think it was the Winchester house where she had an elevator put in.
Yeah.
So, I guess with 46 rooms, you got to have something like that and a dumbwaiter system and everything.
Yeah. And there are a lot of similarities here as far as to us, the odd technology that they were able to install and incorporate into this house.
Right.
I mean, look, the Winchester house had like gas lighting and things. I mean, that just wasn't heard of to have that built into your house. And they both had that a type of intercom system where you could, call back and forth. So, I mean, I can't imagine that there were many homes in the entire U.S. that had something like that.
At the time, no.
Right.
It was cutting edge at the time, so it's pretty cool. Now, foil lines the inside of the entryway ceiling, and it's a nod to Georgiana's frugal early years when she had to save foil from old tea containers in order to decorate the house. So I thought that was cool too. She used to save the foil linings of tea containers and put it on the wall as wallpaper. Wow. And so they still have, I couldn't find if it was original or if it was just a refurbishment of what she would do, kind of to say this is what it would look like. But I thought that was cool. It kind of I don't know that it would be a look that I would go for in a home, but to have like the foil, it's a unique look.
Well, I've seen those tin ceilings where they're like pressed into a design.
Yeah.
I've always thought that's kind of neat looking. I've seen some bathrooms that have that look. It's kind of cool. So I would imagine this had a similar appeal to it, maybe just not as decorative, but still, what a good idea. I mean, to do something like that.
Yep. Now, construction actually began in 1912, and Henry and Georgiana moved into the home in 1914. This was when Georgiana was 68 years old and Henry was 80. So, waited their whole life, basically, to get this house. And they moved in with 8 other members of the family. Now, the couple only lived in the mansion for roughly 4 years before Georgiana died in 1918, and Henry passed away the following year.
Yeah.
So the family continued to live in the home into the 1950s. Now, the last resident was grandson Peter Gattenbein and his father Edward, and they moved out in 1958, and they put the mansion up for sale. Now, the mansion sat empty for about 4 years and then was hit by the Columbus Day storm on October 12, 1962. So hurricane-force winds damaged roof tiles and window panes, and then that allowed water to get inside the mansion. And by 1964, the mansion was in poor condition, and developers actually expressed interest in tearing it down and turning the estate into a subdivision. Those frickin' developers wanting to turn everything into a subdivision. I'm just angry because I keep seeing things here in town go from trees and nice little forested area to, oh, it's another strip mall. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they sit empty. It's not like, oh, we built it because we've got companies wanting to come in. They built it and then they sit empty for 5 or 6 months until people rent it. I'm like, wait a minute.
We've got that going on right now.
Yeah. So I'm just a little bit already perturbed at developers. So,
yeah.
But they wanted to turn the Pittock Mansion into a subdivision. But dedicated citizens of Portland rallied, and they assisted the city in raising the funds to purchase the property for $225,000, which included $67,500 raised by citizens. Mm-hmm. So just the citizens put in $67,500.
Yeah.
It shows you how much they did not want a subdivision there, and they wanted to save that mansion.
Well, maybe, but I like to think that it's just the citizens of Portland realized the historical significance of this amazing house.
Yeah.
And to see it just fall into ruin, it's like giving up a little bit of Portland history.
Yeah. And it's true.
You gotta save it. You gotta save that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, the work needed to restore the mansion and transform it from a private residence to a public space took about 15 months. So in 1965, the mansion opened to the public as a historic house museum. In 1968, the nonprofit Pittock Mansion Society was formed to take on the responsibility of furnishing the mansion, taking care of the collection, and providing educational activities. Now, in 2007, the society took over the day-to-day museum operation from the Portland Parks and Recreation Department, and they've been operating the Historic House Museum ever since. Now, the Pittock Mansion Society is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to inspire understanding and stewardship of Portland history through the Pittock Mansion. The society also works with Portland Parks and Recreation to maintain other historic buildings. All admissions, memberships, donations, grants, and museum store purchases go to the Pittock Mansion and its mission. So I think that's really awesome that they are dedicating all that stuff to saving the history of Portland, because you know me, I'm a history nerd, and I hate seeing history get wiped away. So it's really cool that this society is actually doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what I've seen in the research, it's very affordable to take this tour. Some places it's like, oh my gosh, it's $25 a head to wander through this old house. But I don't have specific pricing, but when I looked at some of the reviews, they all talked about how it was free to look around the grounds, or, it was really inexpensive to take their whole family in. Even one review I read, these folks went because they had a big layover before their flight out, and they said, oh, we can do this and kill a few hours. And that's what they did. Yep. So I think it's great. I think it's great.
And it's a beautiful house. I mean, absolutely beautiful house.
Unbelievable. You can go, there's tons of pictures out there, and their website has a lot of really good photographs of the house. So you can get a feel for not just the size, but how unique it is, and just the splendor of it. It's amazing.
You can see pictures taken from the property out. So you get to see that vista, that view that we were talking about with the mountains in the background. It's incredible.
Yeah. All right. So you see, the history of this place, not all that scary.
Right.
In fact, it's not scary at all. There's no murders. There's no mystery. There's no jilted bride that jumped off the 3rd floor balcony.
Right.
So you're like, why would this place be haunted? That's kind of what I was thinking.
My answer is why not? I don't know.
Yeah, why not? But like a lot of places, the Pittock Mansion shows up on many lists of some of the most haunted homes in the United States. Definitely the most haunted places in Portland, Oregon, which is, by the way, full of haunted places.
Right.
Right. We've talked about places in Portland before. So there's tons of haunted history in Portland, but this doesn't really seem like it would be. And the fact that, as Adam mentioned, they only spent about 4 to 5 years in the mansion before they both died.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they died in the mansion. And not only that, the groundskeepers, any servants, other family that had come in, they all died there too.
Right.
So, but not tragically, not brutally, just naturally. But they still died there. So maybe they're hanging around. And some people think maybe they're hanging around their retirement home because they didn't get to enjoy it that long while they were living.
Could be.
But since the 1960s, visitors have reported odd activity in and around the mansion. Now, as Adam said, it was around that time that the mansion was going through major renovations. The storm in 1962 had done substantial damage. But when the people and the city bought it in 1964 to save it, they start all these renovations. And what have we said? You do renovations to an old building, you wake stuff up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So the ground workers and the visitors and the staff all agree that the ghosts that are present in the Pittock Mansion are not malevolent in any way. And many people assume that the ghosts are the spirits of Henry and Georgiana Pittock. I mean, why not? As Adam said, why not?
Yep.
Just spend your days in this beautiful mansion that, you didn't get to live in very long.
Mm-hmm.
But according to staff and visitors, odd little occurrences happen almost daily in the mansion. Some of them are a little creepier than others, but again, nobody really feels like they're being attacked or in any kind of danger or that they're not wanted. So the most activity in the mansion occurs in the upper rooms. Now, visitors report that when they enter the rooms, they immediately smell this intense fragrance of rose perfume. Now, rose perfume, in the 1800s was very, very common.
Right.
Okay. But like a lot of other things, it wasn't exactly where you could just go down to the Walgreens and pick it up.
Right. Right.
Okay. So it was hard to obtain. And most of the time, the ladies that had or could wear rose perfume were, they were people of means. Okay.
Right. Because they still used ambergris in the perfume back then. And that was expensive and hard to get a hold of.
Yeah. Like they still use it today.
Yeah.
It's funny. I read an article about ambergris the other day.
Yeah.
Talking about how rare it is,
mm-hmm.
but how the fragrance is so unique. And
if y'all don't know what ambergris is, look it up. You will be shocked. So go look.
Yeah.
Go look. I don't want to ruin the surprise because I won't do it justice explaining it. So just look up what ambergris is
But not to go off on too much of a tangent, but what I think you and I were talking about this a couple of years ago. Where was it? Was it in Spain? This guy was picking this stuff up off the beach, and he thought that it was just pretty rocks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It turned out to be ambergris to the tune of like $260,000.
Yep. I remember us talking about that, but I don't remember where it was.
Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, rose perfume. People smell it when they go into the rooms, and the staff believes that this is Georgiana making her presence known. Most visitors report feeling surprised by the smell, and most say that they feel like that presence wishes them no ill will. Now, the apparition of a woman in a long gown has been reported in the mansion, even in the basement. And it's assumed that this is the spirit of Georgiana. Now, outside of the mansion, near the northern side, visitors will report hearing the sound of a shovel hitting the ground. But then right after, they hear the sound of heavy footsteps kind of stomping towards them. The staff believes that this is the sounds of the groundskeeper going through his daily routine. Now, some have even reported seeing an apparition of in like disheveled clothing, as if he'd been working out on the grounds, even to the point of potentially mistaking him as a staff member. So that's why they think, okay, this must be the groundskeeper. But like the Pittocks, the groundskeeper lived and died in the mansion. But everybody says he's also a very kind entity.
This is the house that I want to go visit. Right. I mean,
that's why I said this is the happiest haunted house in the U.S.
Besides that South Pittsburgh hospital where the ghost gooses men, I want to go there just to get ghost goosed. But I would love to.
Hey, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I mean,
we need to.
Look, and we're gonna do it, or we can both go. Mm-hmm. So I had the opportunity to go. Adam couldn't get up here, so I was gonna take Brooks, and then he flaked and didn't go. So Rob, if you're listening, we're gonna go. Okay, the next time you decide to investigate there, we're gonna go. Both of us.
As long as I got a heads up, I can make it happen.
But a lot of people say they strongly feel this supportive, unseen presence. It's been felt by the staff and visitors. And some people that are more sensitive to this than others say they have felt this presence almost escorting them around the mansion, like following them like a good host would do, like giving you a tour, like, come check out my beautiful home. A few folks have even reported seeing a male spirit walking through the home with the assumption that this would be Henry Pittock himself. Now, footsteps is a very common occurrence. Okay, so they're heard around the mansion, in the mansion, at all levels. And they happen at random, according to the staff members, and at any time of day. There have also been reports of boots walking. Not a person, just the boots.
Just boots.
So you look around, here come a pair of boots, clunk, 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 just walking down the hall.
That's weird.
Yeah. Hey, Henry, how are you?
That's weird, man.
That's a new one on me.
That's like a cartoon. Yeah, that's new for me too. I've not heard of that, but
the worst thing is that I could only find that story in one source. It was a good source, so I trusted it, but I didn't see it anywhere else.
Right.
So, if the staff listens to this, they go, nobody here's ever seen that. Okay. So somebody claims that they did.
Yeah. But
still, I've never seen it before, so I had to include it. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. And if you are the person that saw it, please holler at us and tell us what happened. But if you're staff, get in touch with us and let us know if any of this stuff is actually accurate.
Yeah. But one thing that the staff do report is seeing windows in the mansion open and close themselves. Almost as if they have a will of their own. Not that a spirit's doing it, the house is doing it.
Yeah. And if they're old windows, that's a feat too, to get old windows to move.
Right. And so I was reading a review of somebody who had visited the mansion just a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he said when he got there, the first thing he did was ask one of the staff members, "Hey, have the spirits been very active today?" And she kind of said, "Well, it's funny you ask." It's like, this morning we were opening up the windows to air out the house and cool it off. And said we opened a window and it closed and latched on its own. And so he said, okay, I got to look at this. So he went and looked at the window and he said it was one of those that kind of swings open, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like a pane glass where you slide it up and down. He said it swung open, but even if the wind had blown it, which it was a heavy old window. He said, so even if the wind had gotten strong enough to blow it shut, he said it had one of those latches that you have to take your thumb and physically flip it over to close it. He's like, so there's no way the wind did that.
Right.
So I thought that's pretty neat too.
Well, and I like what you said about it's almost like the house did it and not a spirit, because I do like to think sometimes that some of these houses, it may not be spirit activity. It may be the house.
Yeah.
And that, I know people say, well, you're anthropomorphizing stuff or whatever, but there's been a lot of stories out, and it's a topic I want to cover about things themselves being animate when we don't think they are.
Well, consider this, okay? Because I'm with you on this, that in some cases, houses, buildings become almost like living, breathing entities, you know?
Right.
And, but this is what I want you to consider. How many times have you walked into a home, a room, whatever, new, old, it doesn't matter, and you feel something, good, bad, or otherwise? It's not just, oh, I'm in another room. You go in and you feel an energy there.
Yep.
Okay? That you can't explain it. It's not something you could describe. You just go in and you're like, this room has a feeling of all its own. This house has a feeling that you just can't explain. But I think I'm with you, Adam. I think that sometimes that is not spirits that are in the house. That's the energy of the house itself.
Yep.
And whether it's just collected energy, positive or negative, over the years with families living there, we like to talk about all the negative things that happen in these houses because it tells us why this weird entity may be, poking people in the back of the head or throwing glasses across the room. But if we, flip the script on that and say, what about all the birthday parties? What about all the wedding celebrations? What about all a baby coming home for the first time? What about all of that? I mean, there's no negative energy associated with those events. So we fill a house with positive energy. What if it takes on that? Where the house itself gives off a positive energy. And if any place that you and I have researched over the years would fit that description, it sure seems like the Pittock Mansion is it. That there was not just love between Henry and Georgiana, but they were just nice, good people.
Yeah.
And that just flowed throughout the home that they built for themselves.
Well, and it's like we've talked about before when I said, their negative energy can be like a sludge that gets put on the walls of a house or a hospital or whatever. The opposite is true as well, like you were saying. Positive energy. Now, it's not going to be like this ethereal sludge if it's positive energy, but it can radiate into the area as well. Like, it's not just negative energies that are involved in the stone tape theory.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The stone tape theory works for anything. So if there's enough positive energy in a place, then why wouldn't it, like you said, take on a life of its own and be a positive haunted house?
Yeah.
We don't talk about it much because it's not as, quote, fun to talk about, but not everything is a freaking demon.
Like I've been in, doing my job, I have been in so many houses I can't even begin to count. 20 years.
Cat burglar. Yep.
Yeah.
Thought we weren't going to talk about that, Matt.
But, oh, that was good. That was good. Yeah. But, going into patients' homes, there have been a number of homes that I go in enough that I'm like, this place just feels good. This place just feels like home. I've even told patients, I've shown up in an afternoon and the sun's just right. And I'm like, I could just take a nap on your couch.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so nice. There's something about it. I think that's what's going on. I think it's just, they're filling their home with positive energy and it kind of sticks to the walls. But back to some of the weird things that happen. And this one is kind of neat. So visitors and staff report seeing a portrait of Henry Pittock move around on the wall by itself. Now, I found two different instances for this. One makes it sound like this, that it's a portrait like hanging on the wall. Like when I say portrait, what you think of. And
Yep.
I found another couple of instances where it was like a photograph in a small frame that was sitting on a mantle. I couldn't tell exactly, but I think when you listen to this, it sounds like it's actually positioned on a wall, but it moves around. Now, it'll show up in another room, or it'll show up in a different spot on the wall. And some people have even reported seeing these human-like shapes moving the pictures, furniture, house plants from not just around in the room, from room to room.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, one visitor reported that she heard a picture fall off the wall in one of the rooms. Now, when she went to go see what it was, she was watching as a woman wearing a long gown picked up the falling picture from the floor. So a staff member came up behind this woman and said, "Are you okay?" And said, while she's standing next to her, she looks at her and the woman vanishes.
Oh, wow.
Just standing right there.
Yeah.
So,
The woman was
lot
like,
of people,
apparently not. I'm dead.
right? Yeah, she's not okay. But apparently, a lot of folks believe that this is Georgiana just redecorating her house.
Yeah.
Just moving stuff around. Oh, well, this picture of Henry needs to go over here. That was the other thing. There was a picture of him from his youth that moved around. And they're like, if you put it one place, then you come back in a few hours or maybe a day or two later and it'll be somewhere else. But along with the portraits and the paintings in the home, one visitor reportedly was looking at a portrait on the wall and saw the reflection of an older woman in the glass, like she was standing behind her.
Right.
But then she turned around and there's nobody there. So that's a little trickier than the mirror thing. You see something in a mirror, it's going to look more solid, but you see that reflection, you can't make out a lot of detail, but you could tell there's a woman coming up behind you. And you know how you do. Somebody comes up behind you, you don't know. You just naturally just turn around and go, like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And you turn around and nobody's there. You're like, wait a minute. Now, this is this next one is the one that makes me say this is the happiest haunted house in the U.S. There was a tour group of native Hawaiians. Okay. They came in, and one of the youths that was in the group told the staff member, my uncle is a shaman in Hawaii. And he says that he can feel the spirits of the Pittocks here. And they are very happy.
Oh, nice.
I mean, we just don't hear that, man. I was like, how many places have we've researched that the ghost was happy?
Yeah,
they're usually pissed off.
Yeah. Yep.
They're either pissed off at how they died, pissed off that you're there, whatever.
Yep. Or just mad that they are dead and that they're stuck.
Now, one story is about a female employee who got kind of spooked one night as she was closing up the building. Okay, so she's closing up for the night, and part of her routine was to turn off all the lights in the mansion. So after all the lights were off, she began locking the doors and including the front door. And as she turned around to head out for the night, all of the lights in the museum or the mansion switched back on. Now, it just kind of goes to show, no matter what you think, there's been enough that happens in this mansion that there's something that haunts the grounds and the mansion itself. I mean, there's just too much going on. But, I always love when places like this that offer tours, I always love to go and find people that have done this and leave reviews. So I did find several, but this one was good. So these visitors posted their experiences at the mansion on the site OregonHauntedHouses.com. Now, one post describes a rude encounter with a young spirit. It says, during a behind-the-scenes tour at the Pittock Mansion, I had an unseen entity, a child, I guess, based on the height, shove right past my right shoulder and the wall. Said, I felt it through 3 layers of clothing, including a leather jacket. Says, this was in the children's bedroom area of the mansion where the hallway is a little bit narrower. Says, this was the first time I've actually had an encounter with anything paranormal. Pretty cool.
Yep. And it's cool that it's or their first encounter.
Yeah.
With something
it was a physical
paranormal.
touch.
Yeah. Because sometimes people can get into where they believe something was a paranormal encounter when it wasn't because they really want it to be. Or, when you got, there's some people that you talk to that are like, every single day I have a paranormal encounter, and it's like, but do you really?
Yeah.
There's some people that I can believe that they do, but then if you're writing a review about it, I kind of think maybe not. But since it was her first, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now there haven't been a lot of investigations here, but one paranormal investigator did get the opportunity to poke around the mansion, and she actually caught a couple of EVPs. There was one man saying, I'm heading back. And she said she had felt a strong presence following her tour group around the mansion, or her group. It wasn't a tour group. It was her, I guess, the other investigators. But in one of the smaller rooms, she caught another EVP of a friendly female voice saying hello. So you add the EVPs on top of all the other things people have reported, and it really does seem like this place is haunted by friendly spirits.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I did find some things about, they said in the children's bedrooms, they had a lot of these little clown dolls and stuff.
Yeah,
and they said they were kind of creepy as all get out.
Yep.
When somebody even posted a picture of this one particular clown doll, and I was like, geez, that is awful.
I'm glad I didn't see that picture. But I do not want to see that.
But beyond that was like the biggest negative. It's like, if it's haunted, it's these dolls that are doing it.
Yeah. It's coming from this room. But
yeah, I mean, with all of these, and look, I love to, when I start digging into these places, I go until I start getting repeat stories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I start seeing the same stories, repeated that I've already read, I'm thinking, okay, then I've found all the little nuggets that I'm going to find. But there were so many. They were a lot of the same stories, but you could tell that it wasn't just they were regurgitating it from another website. These were, this happened to this person, this happened to that person. When they say visitors have seen these windows open and close, they're not talking about, a couple. They're talking about regular visitors to the mansion on a routine basis witness this happening. Staff members who are there every day, they see it happen very, very frequently. So it really, really says, yeah, I would say that, Henry and Georgiana decided they're going to spend the afterlife in this beautiful home they built.
Yeah. Well, like we said, they didn't get a lot of time in it when they were alive. Right. So they're like, I built this stupid thing. I'm going to hang around and
I'm going to hang out here. So just imagine had they gone forward and demolished this place after the storm, we wouldn't have these incredible stories, and Portland would have lost out on a piece of history. So
yeah.
I'm glad they did that, and then
in
2023, two bozos get to talk about it on a podcast.
Right? Exactly. Thanks for not destroying some material that these bozos could talk about. So we appreciate that.
That's right. So if you enjoy these two bozos, as Adam said, don't forget to go and rate and review us on iTunes. It brings us up the charts, but more importantly, when somebody searches paranormal podcasts or whatever, it's more likely Graveyard Tales is going to show up, and it just brings more people into the show. You can check out our website. It is graveyardpodcast.com. And on our website, you can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. You can listen to the show, and you can become a patron. And we thank everyone that has donated to the show. It does cost some money to continue to put this out and keep our equipment in working order. But the donations from our patrons is what allows Adam and I to continue to do that. And we thank you so much for that. Man, this was a fun one. This was a fun one. I enjoyed, hearing about this place. It was somewhere I just kind of came across, and I pitched it to Adam, and he was like, let's do it.
Yep. So I like that it's not a super scary place.
Yeah.
We do a lot of super scary, so it's cool that it's not something like that. It's more like it would be if the people were actually still living there. A happy place.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No brutal history. A serial killer didn't live in the basement or nothing.
There's
like
no portal to hell down in the basement or under the stairwell or
right.
Creepers and shadow people and stuff running on the walls and
exactly. So all right. That's all I've got, Adam. Until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.